That's how the podcast starts. You saying Beetlejuice 3
Every
times.
time. Every time. Welcome, everybody. Today's June 16th, 2020, and we will be discussing Divinity 2, Original Sin.
Which, right off the bat, I'm going to stop you there, Chris. That's the worst name for a video game ever.
Pretty bad.
I've pinpointed why.
Why is that?
Because there's no combination of the words that make sense. Like, if the first game was called Divinity Original Sin, then I understand that they're calling this Divinity Original Sin 2.
The fact that there's a number associated with those words is
bad. Also, the word original makes you think it'd be like the first one, but it obviously isn't.
It's a real mess of a name.
It couldn't be more Original Sin. Like it could. In fact, we know that this isn't the Original Sin because there was an Original Sin, and this isn't about it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Just the whole connotation too. Like, it makes me think of this world that's kind of like this pseudo Greek mythology bullshit. Like, very uninteresting. In fact, it put me off of playing this game for a while, to be honest. I'd heard good things about it for a long time.
Also, even just the screenshots of the box art.
The box art's kind of
not great.
Like a romance novel kind of look to it. Yeah, I agree.
I am shirtless on the cover of it.
Well, okay. He's a red lizard, in case
right.
No one knew about that. But yeah, I'm going to make a bold statement. This game is fantastic.
Great game.
It was developed and published by Larian Studios.
Larry and Studios,
Out of Belgium. And they were founded back in 96, so they've been pumping out some games for a while.
Belgium, of course, famous for their video game industry.
Maybe. Most of their games seem to be in the Divinity series, or I don't know if it's a series, but they have Divinity in the name, like 80% of their games. So I have to admit I don't really know anything about the rest of their catalog.
But they're really into divination.
They are pushing, they're really riding that Divinity line hard. Divinity 2 was released in 2017 for Microsoft Windows. Also ported to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Mac OS, and Nintendo Switch. I can't imagine playing it
on a console.
Switch. Yeah. But they did it somehow.
Huh, interesting.
The first game, called Divinity Original Sin, was released in June 2014, and I think that was a pretty big breakout success for him. Divinity 2 does take place in the same universe, 1,200 years after the events of the first game, and I don't know much about it. From what I've seen, the gameplay is quite similar.
Yeah, it looks very similar from what I've seen as well.
I definitely didn't feel lost at all in this game. I don't think there's much that you need to know from the first two to kind of follow it.
Right. They kind of fill you in on some of the story beats before you get into this one.
This game, I have to say, has probably the best turn-based combat of any RPG I've played.
Okay,
that's a real bold statement.
Let me think about this.
I've thought about it a lot, and I stand by it. Try to come up with something that beats it, man.
Turn-based
combat.
Yeah.
It's up there.
It is pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give that one to you.
And I've been, just a little background on myself, I've been playing RPGs since the SNES era. And over the years, I've tried to get different people into the genre. And the main resistance I've met with is I don't like turn-based combat. And it's hard to argue against because it is pretty boring a lot of times.
Yeah, and in fact, even in this game, the one of the low points about, well, I shouldn't say it's a low point, but the main barrier to playing with friends, or like the part where I would get hung up a little bit, was that turns can take a long time and you can find yourself waiting.
But the reason I think they take so long is because you're genuinely weighing your options. Like your choices really matter. That the difficulty is high enough that there's enough complexity that you really do spend some time thinking about those turns sometimes.
You actually have decisions to make that actually will impact the fight.
When I think back to Super Nintendo, the whole philosophy was different, but basically it was just like attrition,
Right.
Like each individual battle, probably not very difficult, but over time you may run out of like healing capacity, or you might get worn down by the enemies until you find the next save point. This game has an entirely different philosophy. Each battle is quite challenging, and you can recover fully after every battle.
No, the combat is very dynamic and actually makes you think about not only the terrain, the way things interact is very, very well done. And, regarding the turn-based piece of it, it'll be very interesting. At the time we're recording this, Larian will have the next Baldur's Gate.
Yes, game. They're working on Baldur's Gate 3. Which I'm very excited about.
And one of the changes they've made to the turn-based combat is that the NPCs, as in Divinity 2, God damn, the name, I'm stumbling over the name. Divinity Original Sin 2, each character has their own turn. In Baldur's Gate 3, they will be doing a entire team-based turn, alternating.
Oh, are they? I didn't know that. Yeah. Kind of like Suikoden.
Right. So,
I think it was kind of like that.
All allies will go at the same time, and then all NPCs will go at the same time.
That's cool.
I'm not exactly sure how that worked because you had to springboard off of each other in the fights for Divinity 2, and it was very important that I'm going to set up.
Was critical. I'll be interested. It will certainly speed the battles up, if nothing else.
Right, and it could be really great depending on the implementation.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the surfaces because it is such an ingenious thing to put in RPG. It's so good, it's hard to believe that it hasn't been done before. The fact that magic spells create and manipulate and destroy surfaces, they all have really important strategic considerations in a lot of ways. It's so cool when you have a bunch of oil around and you're just waiting for that spark to set up fire that spreads everywhere, or you're in water using it to arc electricity to multiple targets. You have steam and fire. I do think it gets a little crazy with the cursed surfaces.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a electrified cursed blood cloud or something, it gets a little overwhelming, but I think the complexity and again the unpredictability that it adds is just one of the best innovations that this game came up with.
Yeah, I think that making the combat not just rock paper scissors simulator is so good, and as you said, the attrition aspect isn't there, right? You have to actually think about how you're approaching the battle. It isn't just a mash,
and it gives you that great sense of victory when you do beat a tough battle. It's triumphant feeling.
So let's talk about the difficulty level a little bit, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely.
I would honestly, the regular. Second complaint about this game: the name. One, your name sucks. That's the first thing. I
just want to make that very clear.
2, the names for the difficulties. Do you have them handy?
Oh, I don't have them.
Jesus, they're so stupid.
Bad. It's not like just call it fucking easy, medium, hard.
Thank you.
We don't. It
isn't explorers, tactician, something else.
Yeah, there was one that was just the story mode,
and you couldn't the way they're arranged in the game. There's no indicator that even one is harder than the other. It's like, are these different game modes? You don't even know.
Tactician, you can see that's probably the hard one, but I agree, it is confusing,
bafflingly bad in an otherwise stellar game. But
and I do think I want to say there are some issues I have with this game. Overall, though,
just really good,
really great. Yeah,
this game slaps.
But you were saying that the default difficulty?
Yeah, default difficulty is so well dialed in.
It really is. Yeah,
I mean, it's hard, but it's not too hard, and it rewards you paying attention and doing the things that you're supposed to do.
It's challenging enough that it fucking matters how you build your character.
Yep.
It really, if you have a dumb build, you're going to struggle in this game.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out in that same vein, how satisfying building characters is in this game. For that reason, it really matters, and you never get to the point where you have an excess of skill points or anything.
True, yeah.
You really feel... I was constantly respecking, just tweaking things a little bit, like, oh, maybe I can get rid of my points in Aerothurge and kind of min-max a bit more into this, you know. That
You're like, I need the stench skill.
I need to smell bad. That's a given.
He role plays like he is in real life.
I always play myself in games. You know,
that's why you were an undead
dwarf with stench. So I love that. One of my pet peeves with RPGs is when you can, you know, in Skyrim, like when you're the best mage and then you're the best thief and you're going to be the best fighter. I really think it's important to design the game in a way that there are limitations to make the choices matter.
And you know, the other thing about that is that I don't like it to be... There's a lot of nuance in how you build your character in this game.
Yes, yeah.
And
some of it is a little nonsensical, how things scale. Not for the most part.
Right.
There's some weird stuff. But
I also do like the fact that there are idiosyncrasies in how you build.
Yeah, yeah.
And that it isn't so obvious how to min-max everything. I would honestly not like this game if it was just like, okay, min-max your Death Knight to be this way. You know, there are a lot of valid builds. You know, some might be a little bit easier and better than others, but...
Right. You don't need to pigeonhole and, like, you can only really do these 3 builds. Or
right.
You're fucked. I did find the balance of the game to not be great. I did find, like, with a physical character, you can pretty much min-max the shit out of them. Because there are a few enemies, I think, that have physical resistance, but for the most part... You don't need to consider that too much. I will say the whole physical magic armor thing is really cool because that is one thing that would keep you from, like, say, hey, why not just go all physical or why not just go all magic? You would kind of struggle with certain fights if you took that approach. Right. But it's still a valid way to play the game, of course, because there are advantages to doing it. Yeah, I spent a lot of time, probably, more than I have in many years, just thinking about how to build characters and parties. Yeah. Which apparently my OCD nature is it's something that I enjoy, I guess.
Yeah. You are a boring person.
I am.
A sad,
painfully
sad, boring person.
That is the truth. I also want to mention that this game is respectful of the player's time to an almost ludicrous degree.
Yes, talk about that.
There are lots of... For one thing, we didn't mention this specifically, but you can respec at any time. It's completely penalty-free. Some people might gripe about that, but I think it was a good choice. It just punishes new players to not have that option.
Yeah.
Tons of fast travel options. You have waypoints, the teleporter pyramids, but you also have the magic pockets thing. So you don't have to dick around trading items with people. It just automatically works.
The convenience methods in it are really good.
Yes.
Even down to selling items. You can tag every item you want to sell as you pick them up. Yeah. So that when you go to the person, you can just sell them all easily. That sort of thing.
Which is really nice. I do want to point out the one puzzle where your party gets separated when you're going to that Mortis guy. And you can solve it in the most nonsensical way ever. Because you can magic pocket past the pyramids around and just teleport to each other. So it makes zero sense. But still, I'm always going to appreciate it when designers kind of err on the side of fun factor versus realism.
Let's cut out the fat and get rid of the monotony. I play games to have fun. I don't
want to be walking
grind unless you're playing Death Stranding.
Hey, it's the first Strand game.
Right.
So you just don't get it.
It's a whole new genre.
You don't understand it. How did you feel about the crafting system?
Oh, yeah. Good. I'm glad you asked me because, as you know, I'm the craft meister.
Arts and crafts. Is that a talent in this game?
So, there's a crafting system in this game. It is not super useful for the average character.
That's true.
It's indispensable if you're an archer or
an archer.
Or an archer.
Or a stealth archer.
Right. The inevitable stealth archer. I actually, on one of my multiple playthroughs of this game, I chose the 5-star diner talent for my character Fat Elvis, and
And I mercilessly made fun of him for it.
yeah, but Fat Elvis,
It was pretty decent, I gotta say.
Self-confidence. No, the 5-star diner is a decent perk.
If you craft and really maximize it, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a very limited things that you can actually craft. You can craft
There are a
armor in this
few OP
game.
shit like the mind maggot grenades.
Okay, mind maggot grenades are amazing.
Holy shit. Incredible.
But the inconsistency of the crafting is very strange.
Yeah.
You can craft armor in this game, and as far as I know, it would never be useful.
I didn't look into it deeply, but that was my takeaway. Like, why would you craft equipment?
Yeah.
It's mainly like consumables. And
Even the skill books are kind of, it's almost more trouble and expense to craft them than it is just buy them.
The crafted skills are cool. Where I don't know if you combine that much. Yeah. That's a neat idea. Whenever you have a crafting system as well, you're going to have inventory chaff, which is a little annoying to me. True. It wasn't terrible in this game, and I think there was a way you could distinguish which items can be used in crafting, wasn't there?
Yeah, you can go to recipe, or I mean, you have a recipe thing where it'll pull up everything you know how to make. That was an English sentence, and the different menus actually differentiate by what thing the item is, although some can be used in different ways. You know, it reminds me a little bit of the game.
We should have one game
Fallout
that we
4.
always compare every game to, and it might be Fallout 4.
Fallout 4 is that game now. In Fallout 4, there was this very interesting
settlement
building, but it was...
Don't get me started.
It was not...
Wasted so much fucking time.
It just didn't have a lot of impact on the game, which was the whole problem with it.
Yeah.
The system itself wasn't terrible.
I thought it was fine.
It wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but you could do stuff, and I was rewarding to do because I like to build stuff.
Yeah.
But
I like a more elegant crafting system. Like, fewer shit, but what you can make is more significant. But I'm not going to gripe on it too much. It was cool that they included it.
Yeah, but again, very inconsistent and just not a... It's like, okay, you went through the work of making this, but then it doesn't really have a big impact on the game.
Yeah.
But Fat Elvis loved it. He gives it 5 stars out of a 5 stars diners perk.
Gold Fool's Gold sandwiches out of 10. Co-op.
Is that what they were called? Fool's Gold sandwiches?
I think that maybe. Someone's yelling if anyone's listening to this.
The banana, peanut butter, whatever. Yeah. Elvis ate
R.I.P. R.I.P. buddy. He would love this game, I have a feeling. Co-op.
Oh my god, we haven't even talked about
this
co-op.
This game has co-op, and
I clipped us there, sorry.
Oh, shit.
Listeners.
They did not need to put co-op in this game at all, but they did.
Okay.
And it is really cool.
Having an RPG co-op...
It's rare, man. It's super rare.
So rare, and... It is so rewarding in this because you can actually follow along the story with each other.
Yeah, you can. You're probably not gonna. You're probably not gonna pay attention to it. You have to have kind of a like-minded group.
That's true.
To do that.
But I mean, let me.
It changes the whole dynamic of the game, really, to play with other people.
And not only that, there's something I really want to point out that's very special about the co-op in this game, which is. It makes the game more enjoyable because you actually streamline what you have to understand about how your character works.
That's true.
You don't have to know exactly how to play every of the 4 characters in your party.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it streamlines it, makes it more fun to play.
The party management to gameplay ratio is improved.
Is improved by a co-op.
Now, you're going to be obviously waiting around more in combat because you only get 1 turn out of 15 or whatever. But... It's really fun to watch how other people play this game, too. It's complex enough that the friends we had that we played with, they would occasionally do something with their build that was like, oh, that's really good synergy or whatever.
Or just fun, too. That's
and it's not super intense, so you can kind of chat while you're playing. It was such a great thing to include. I really love this game for doing that.
Also, a big part about the co-op experience is that you can absolutely go in different directions while you're all playing at the same time. And then,
yes,
if you're in town, you go scatter and you do your own thing for a while.
Yeah, exactly. When we played, there were moments where we'd probably be apart for 20 minutes, just doing whatever our individual characters needed to do.
Crafting sandwiches for Elvis.
Well, that's a big job. The guy eats a lot of sandwiches.
That's right.
We talked about the balance a little bit. I did want to mention, we talked about physical versus magic. That's kind of just my opinion. But there were certain things like the torture talent with Worm Tremor that were super strong.
Yeah.
And there are a few points in this game where it gets into PvP. And I didn't really take it seriously, but if you did, the game just isn't balanced for it.
No, that's true. That's good.
You have things like Chameleon Cloak and that make it not suited for that. But it was a very interesting way to have the game end. To have you choose to claim divinity for yourself or
claim original sin.
Claim that sin all for your own self. And I think it was kind of the way they had to end it. But in any case, I didn't want to, again, harp on the game too much for that because it was a pretty small issue for me. Traps. This game had traps in it.
That's true. That is a true statement.
Should it have traps?
No,
I would argue that it should. Does anyone like trap-heavy segments of games?
Here's my strategy for walking through traps.
Just fucking
game.
Bulldoze through them.
Just go through those babies.
Absolutely, because you can
rest
just
up.
lay in that magic bedroll and mend your body that's been exploded on 40 times.
Yeah.
It's really a simple perception check type mechanic, too. Which is just... I understand the lineage of that with the basis in, pen and paper games, but it's really not interesting in a video game. It just...
We should bring up the fact of how they're changing that for the Baldur's Gate 3. There was a concept, kind of stutter and ruin the podcast.
You have a -5 to speech.
There was essentially a behind-the-scenes perception check going on in Divinity Original Sin 2, where characters with a certain high enough perception would see these traps and alert the other people.
Watch the fuck out.
Yeah, and that was it. But in Baldur's Gate 3, they're going to make a change where, one, you're actually going to be having frequent perception checks for a variety of things, and you're going to know via an indicator that there'll be a check ongoing.
Okay.
But you won't know what it's toward.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I love how they are going to show the actual dice roll.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're playing co-op, that's going to be a cool moment if you hit a crit or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. In general, though, I don't think this game should have had traps, or they could have implemented it different. I still don't like the whole basing it on a stat. Persuasion was kind of in the same boat. It's just a stat dump. You need to have someone in your character with a 5 persuasion.
And to get, that was one of my complaints about it, is to get certain quests done or to unlock certain paths, you had to have a high persuasion character, which I would just prefer other avenues,
Yeah, it's just not interesting.
Yeah, it's just not interesting. It's just an obligatory thing, right?
Yeah, the only I like when a game will have a character that, when a reaction to a character is based on a specific background of the character, right, or a decisions
you've made, or
something that's related to the actual RP and not just dumping points into something. Thievery was pretty lame. Similarly, it felt like you kind of were exploiting the game.
It's very good in the game.
It is very good. It's powerful, but it was pretty comical when you had different members of your party talking to different people just to get them to turn around, and then you have this guy that's a bush behind someone. Yeah, so that could have been better. I do think I heard retooling that too for Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, the stealth mechanics seem like they're going to be quite a bit different for Baldur's Gate 3.
You thought this was about Divinity 2. It's about Baldur's Gate 3. There were a few annoying battles in this game.
I know exactly which one you're going to say. There's one annoying battle.
What's that?
It is the
Possession
demon
guy.
that possesses
That's annoying
anybody.
as fuck.
That is by far the worst.
There
battle.
are other ones. The blinded arena fight is kind of interesting.
That's
but
kind of
mostly
interesting. I
annoying.
like it. I'm going to disagree with you. On
The
this one.
lizard consulate with the flaming lizards. Is that fun?
Which one was that?
Where they
Oh,
that
the
one's
flame.
annoying.
Oh god, I just
But-
maxed out the mic again.
Again, as in general, I was just amazed at how they kept the combat fresh. This is a long game, and I did not get tired of the combat.
Yeah. Another point about that.
Mm-hmm.
The game length is appropriate.
It's
we talk
good.
about this
It's
all the
good.
time. The game length is appropriate to the number of mechanics and things
Absolutely.
in the game.
This game needed to be long. There
Yeah.
are games that should be 3 hours long.
Yes.
And that's it. This game, I forget how long I played it. I put a ton of hours in with my various playthroughs. But yeah, it was very much an appropriate length.
Yeah.
Did you have any particular favorite battles that stood out?
I have a favorite character I want to talk about.
Uh-oh.
Trompdoy, obviously.
Well, okay. That's a given. Yeah.
There's some fun writing in this for characters.
Yeah, there are. And I wanted to mention just a couple
Fights
specific
first. Yes,
battles.
yeah.
The one in the black pits where you're up in an oil derrick.
I love that one.
That's a good fight. And there's all these oil blobs, and then some fire blobs come, and it's just very chaotic feeling.
And you really get the feeling you're kind of up on this pedestal, fighting them off from all sides.
It's very epic.
Yeah, really fun.
In general, any battles that there's multiple factions, like when there's a bunch of Voidwoken, but there's also some Magisters or Paladins, it just feels really epic to have these different groups. And you can choose to kill them all, or you can choose to remain friendly to another group. It's really great. It feels like you're in the middle of a huge battle.
Yeah.
I thought it would be good to mention the presentation and graphics. I didn't have a lot about this, but
Yeah, definitely.
I did really appreciate. I played this on a pretty old, shitty computer. It looked great and it ran pretty well.
Yeah.
At times, I got some slowdown with the fire effects and stuff, but I love the verticality of it.
Yeah. Not a lot of interaction with the verticality, but the actual...
There's it's definitely
there
a
is some.
tactical element.
Yes, it is absolutely a tactical element. God damn it, we're going to talk about Baldur's Gate 3 again, but one of the big goals in them for Larian is going to be that there's going to be a lot more interaction as far as movement with the vertical element of the game.
That's cool.
So yes, there certainly was an aspect of it here, particularly with archers
mainly in
and-
combat,
right?
I guess, not as much in exploration.
The graphics are, a good realism where it's not focusing on being hyper realistic, but it's not like cartoony either, which is actually a very hard balance to strike.
It is. There's a good clarity to it, I think.
Yep.
Things aren't confusing at all.
We haven't talked about sound design at all.
Mm-hmm.
The voice actors. We have noted multiple times that this game has very good voice actors, and there's
a lot of dialogue in this game.
Dialogue.
Red Prince, I thought, great voice actor. I liked Malady a
How
lot.
have you not mentioned Trompdoy?
Trompdoy was my shit. Yeah, there's in a game with this volume of dialogue, it's always impressive to me when they have such a consistent level of quality. The narrator was really good too. Yeah, I think it did add a lot to the game.
Yeah, I agree.
I played games like this where they are text-based, like the older CRPGs, and it really pulls you in a bit more to have a top talent doing your voice acting. So
That being said, you know what I'm gonna say.
no, I don't actually, and I'm scared.
Hold on.
Take a deep drink. There you go. Swish it around. Savor the moment.
Now I'm nervous. Okay, hold on. Wait. Give me a second.
Okay.
It smells worse over here. There are a couple
rotten
lines.
eggs. Oh yeah, the repeated. Yeah, it's not as bad as Dishonored or anything like that, but
There are a couple lines that I guarantee you will just be seared into your brain after this game.
get under your skin a little bit. I thought the music was pretty good. Nice orchestral score.
Yeah.
The main theme is nice. In fact, we should play that at the beginning of the episode.
Fuck you. You're not the one who has to edit this.
I'm not an editor. I don't know how these things work. Let's discuss the story of this game a little bit.
Okay.
Let's do it. I really enjoyed the beginning of this game. I thought it was pretty intriguing. I genuinely believe that as a sorcerer, I was responsible for the Voidwoken attacks. And for that reason, I couldn't really see the Magister group as villains. It reminded me a lot of the Templar. And I'm not going to say Baldur's Gate. Don't worry. It reminded me of the Templars from Dragon Age, where they're a repressive group, but it's justified because it's necessary to protect others.
Right.
I like that the gods are weakened and you don't really understand. You're getting all these cryptic messages from the voidlings. And I also liked the middle of the game quite a bit because it was simply like, hey, you need to get stronger. Go out there and get strong.
That's true.
And that's what you do in an RPG. And I thought it was cool.
And in real life.
Not so much in real life. I thought it was clever to tie the actual gameplay mechanics to the story for that middle chunk, which I would argue is possibly the strongest part of the game.
Yeah,
I like the kind of open-endedness of it. That map is really, really rich. There's tons of stuff to do, and you can't hardly walk like for a screen without running into something interesting.
Regarding the story, my complaint, you pointed out that the Magisters aren't wholly bad, and I agree. And it does run into the problem of, on our second playthrough, I think it was, we were less judicious in not killing people. We killed a lot of people in the second time.
Well, you know.
But it was almost always like, okay, well, they kind of deserved it anyway. You run into this problem where there's no faction that you really want to be a part of in this game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair.
Even, like, I don't even like my own character.
I don't even like myself.
I mean, really, now we're hitting just real close to home.
Deep. Yeah, the main two factions end up being, like, this is kind of obscured for a long time, but you're basically God King versus Lucian. The God King is pretty clearly represented as evil. He's basically going to enslave the world if he returns. There are kind of hints that he's going to make this more Randian kind of world, but he was a god of the Eternals.
Getting political.
I am. I'm getting...
Damn.
You didn't know. I got most of this, by the way, from my solo playthrough, because I kind of delved into it a little bit more, but he was allowed through a hole in the veil when the other 7 gods were weakened. I'm talking about the God King. He was banished, but he used to rule over the world until the 7 gods harvested the power from the veil and banished him. The other faction is Lucian, who you think is dead. He's still alive, but his big spoiler. By the way, this whole thing's gonna have spoilers, but his goal was essentially to rid the world of all source. He would use that to restore the veil and keep the Voidwoken from returning, which would also seal out the Eternals, if you give a shit about that. Lucian is, he makes a compelling argument when you talk to him, but he is certainly not clearly good. He reminds me of Ozymandias from Watchmen. He's very utilitarian. He's done a lot of bad things. For example, the whole thing with the death fog killing all the elves. So he's not clearly good, but he does certainly make a compelling argument. Ultimately, though, this is a game where you're dealing with the fate of the world, and I have always had the opinion that people don't really give a shit about a fictional world. They only really care about characters, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And how many characters did you really care about in this game?
Tromptoy for sure.
Trompers, but he dies before the ending. So he's
spoiler alert again.
Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I think of games where I was like really
invested,
amped up in the ending, it's because of characters.
Yeah.
Pretty much universally.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. Also, I'm thinking about the inevitable kind of, what's the name for it? Where I'm thinking as a software developer, I'm thinking scope creep, but that isn't it. Power creep? Mm-hmm. Where it's, okay, everything ends up being, I can save the world. What's that called?
I can't remember, but...
Yeah, so, it's harder. I think it's harder to write a story where there aren't, your repercussions for failure aren't the world ends or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it isn't. It's so obvious that that's the good thing to do is save the world. Yeah. But I really do prefer smaller scale.
I agree. Games should do more smaller, more intimate stories. I think.
Like how tired of we are the trope of you're the one, and that's
the chosen
this game. You're the divine original sin too. One.
I agree. 100%. I do want to mention there are some good characters in this game. Like I liked Red Prince quite a bit. Malady, Tarquin was interesting. There's a little kind of environmental stuff going on where you can read people's journals and learn more about them. But again, I didn't really care that much about characters. And I wanted to bring up this point of I kind of wonder how much of that was due to the perspective of the game. The fact that you're looking at it from that overhead kind of detached perspective. You can zoom in, but I do think that literally distances you from the characters. I wonder if it would have been more effective if it would have zoomed into a tighter kind of third-person
over
view.
The shoulder. I think that's an interesting kind of psychological component of just physically being far away from your character.
I think it really makes it harder to invest in the conversations. Even though this has voice acting, you don't feel like you are the character.
That's true.
You're not seeing facial animation. And granted, that's obviously going to take a lot more development and resources to do. But I do think it came into play. Because I don't think it's the writing. I think the writing's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I just didn't feel as intimate with the story segments.
Also, though, if your choice, if any dialogue choice you make doesn't really affect future dialogue choices, then you can't build your character up that much anyway. I mean, even, in the Mass Effect series, you can at least unlock a few different paths by playing a certain way. It doesn't have a huge impact, but, if you're...
You feel like it's...
Right, you feel like you are kind of this type of person, whereas here it's just like, okay, you're always going to get the same.
And you basically choose between... You're kind of choosing between two other factions in the end.
Yes.
Yeah. I do think the story of this game is enhanced a bit by playing with the pre-made NPCs because they're just tied to the world in
there's story
some
elements
interesting
and quest
ways.
Elements.
Yeah. But they do... There's a point in the game where they have to kind of decide if they're going to take Divinity for themselves or support you, and they all universally support your character like way too easily. Even it doesn't make sense for the NPCs that do it. Like even NPCs that are shown to be very headstrong and self-assured, and they just immediately like, you're the best choice.
You're great.
Yeah, you're the best. We've talked a couple times, and I decided. One other thing I wanted to mention: this game does have romance in it.
Oh God! Tell me.
After Dallas beats you to the Well of Ascension, when you go back to...
Hold on, way before that, there's a romance before that I experienced.
Trompe?
No, not Trompe. Good guess. You can sleep with a prostitute in it early.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, in that tavern. Yes. Yeah.
I couldn't go through with it. I'm not shamed. I couldn't sleep with that lizard woman.
Couldn't bang the lizard chick. But
I mean, I could.
But I chose not to. After Dallas beats you to the Well of Ascension, you go back to the Hall of Echoes on the Lady Vengeance. And before you leave that little scene, the game kind of hints that this will be your last chance for respite and asks you if you want to spend some time with a member of your party.
He's doing air quotes.
Yes. And
for you guys at home.
It's something kind of oblique like that. They don't come out and say it.
Do you want to bang a lizard?
It took me a minute to realize that's what they were asking. Like, hey, do you want to have sex? And my party members were Red Prince and Fane and Ifan. So do you want to have sex with a red lizard or a skeleton?
Yes is the answer.
Obviously, I said yes to both. But I'm not against having romance in games, but to just like throw it in like that with no previous... And I guess they just took the approach in this game of making everyone bisexual, which is weird to me.
Which is just like real life. Let's make it political.
If you want to bang,
again,
you can. But it's like they almost think like, hey, we're pro LGBTQ, but no, it's just like a lazy thing. As a game developer, you need to. It's obvious it's fine to have a bisexual character, but to just have everyone open to everyone is bizarre to me and lazy. Well, that pretty much sums up my thoughts on this.
You think Tromp Doy would have sex with me?
Tromp Doy would absolutely be interested in.
He wanted to see my pecker.
He flat out said that right away.
His words, not mine.
If that's not a pickup line, I don't know what is. To summarize, though, who would you recommend this game to?
I should mention with that leading question, I recommended this game to friends who did not get into it.
Idiots?
They're not my friends anymore.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think you need a level of investment to enjoy this game, and you have to let yourself.
And it's not an easy game to just drop right into.
Right.
There's a lot you need to figure out. I would say anyone that's into more complex, tactical, challenging RPGs, you absolutely need to give this a try. The only thing in my experience that I could compare it to would be Final Fantasy Tactics, and that is a much older game. It is similar, but this is just has expanded on that core gameplay so much. So if you're into Final Fantasy Tactics, or like I said, if you like an RPG where you really have to consider your builds and your choices in combat, you got to check out Divinity 2 Original Sin.
We did it together. Also, I'm going to keep on expanding on that nice bookend that you made, but I'm just going to run right over it. If you can get together some friends and play through this game, I mean, that's really what is the best asset of this game to me, is the fact that it is a perfect story-based co-op game, which you just do not see enough of.
It is very good as a single player, but I agree. If you can experience it in co-op, it's really a cool and unique thing to do.
Yeah, and I wish there were more games like this, because it might be my favorite genre as far as I love to be able to share that experience. It's like, you can watch any movie.
Though, there really hasn't been another game like this that I'm aware of.
Divinity Original Sin.
Perhaps. And perhaps
Baldur's Gate 3.
A game that, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but Baldur's Gate 3 will have a co-op. So, I'm hoping we can delve back into this type of play.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, everybody, we'll see you next time.
Pet Pal. We didn't talk about Pet Pal.
Some.
We didn't talk about Peepums.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, tell your friends, subscribe, review us on your podcast platform of choice. We would very much appreciate it.
We also have a website, the-mmg.com, or themuseumofmoderngames.com. That's all one word, no punctuation. And from there you can find links to all of our various social media presences and a list of the games we're going to play next.
We would love to hear your thoughts about the games we've covered so far, as well as any suggestions for games you would like us to discuss in the future. And if you help support us on Patreon, you can get a number of perks like access to our Discord server, and you can even vote on our next game.